Hey, SongTown, I'm Clay Mills. I'm here with Marty. Today we're going to talk about 10 lies that amateur songwriters tell themselves.
Number one is I'm not talented enough. In my experience, hard work outranks talent every time. And, we all have differing levels of talent, but I have seen people grow an amazing amount by just learning and doing the work and getting in the reps of writing songs. So, I don't think it's a thing where anybody can say, I'm just not talented enough.
Yeah, I often get emails from prospective SongTown members, and they're like, can you just listen to my song and tell me if I have what it takes? Mm-hmm. And it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because I can remember feeling that way when I started. But if I was going to be judged on songs I wrote back then, I would have just quit. There's so much room for growth. Mm-hmm. I've seen writers come to town and somebody will set me up to write with them. They're new to town. They're real green. And sometimes I was guilty of going, gosh, this person is not a good writer. They don't have what it takes. And then 5 years later, they're writing amazing songs. Yeah. So it taught me you can never judge anyone, and that's what the thing about SongTown we try to instill in all our members is be supportive of everyone because we're all on this journey at different points. Yeah. And so many people that you see today and you think, well, I'm better than that person or I'm not, or, it's all going to change, Yeah. And it's not a competition. We're here to support each other. And that's one of the great things about SongTown. Pretty much everyone, unless we kick them off the island for misbehaving. But everyone supports each other,
Yeah. When I got my first publishing deal with Sony, there was a friend of mine who also wrote for Sony, and they called her in one day and said, we think you ought to move back to Oklahoma because you don't have what it takes.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about this, and I said, well, what are you going to do? And she said, that really ticked me off, and I'm going to prove them wrong. And within 2 or 3 years, she had multiple number one songs. And
yeah.
So, it just shows even a big publisher told her that she didn't have what it took, and she proved them wrong.
Hey, it never stops. The first time I had a number one song, a friend of mine was talking to me and he goes, yeah, I was writing with so-and-so yesterday, and he was a big writer in town, and he'd had dozens of number one songs. And my friend was telling me, he was saying that, oh, you guys just got lucky on your number one and you'll never do that again. And it was like motivation. It's like I couldn't wait to get to work the next day and write just so I could write a better song.
Yeah, That's awesome. What's next on our list, Clay?
Gear acquisition syndrome.
Gear acquisition syndrome, which you know about.
Yes. Now, in my case, it's I am naturally inclined to use gear and work in a DAW using synths and I love that stuff, arranging tracks, putting tracks together. So for me, it made sense to acquire gear to be able to do that. But I know you've often told this story about how you went out and bought gear to follow that same path, and maybe tell your side of it.
Yeah, so when I started, I had in mind, I want to be the guy that does his own demos and sings them and plays everything and builds tracks. And so I went and bought all this gear, and I started trying to learn it, and I'm like, this is not my cup of tea. I'm just not cut out to do this. And I quickly realized that my demos were going to be really weak or average at best. Mm-hmm. And that's if I spent 2 years learning how to use it all.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that I didn't need any of that gear. I wound up just putting that stuff away, selling some of it. And today I'm just do simple recording stuff, of work tapes, or, I might put a vocal down. So I have a mic and Logic, and that's all really,
Yeah. I've seen SongTown members say, I'm going to take a break from writing and I'm going to take courses in production and Logic, and I'm going to do that for a year and then I'm going to come back to songwriting. And I'm thinking, wow, you're going to get a year behind in your songwriting to maybe learn something that you may or may not be good at, like at least do both, And I see it all the time. Somebody will go, I just got to have that latest plug-in, for my recording. It'll make my vocals sound great. And you and I both know amazing, big-time pro writers that are just using GarageBand and a simple little mic, nothing fancy, and they make great little demos that get the songs cut. They're not trying to get this full production Suno AI demo. They're keeping it simple, and that leaves room for the artist and the producers to imagine how they would interpret the song.
Well, and we know writers too, they're succeeding with no gear.
Yeah.
And, they just write great songs and they go pay someone to do a demo or they write them with someone who can do it. So it's not that you have to have any level of skill or amount of gear to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote my first big song on a little $200 travel guitar. But I know other people, they're like, oh, I got to go buy that $3,000 Gibson Dove guitar, and that's going to be what helps me, inspires me to write songs. I'm like, you can write a song on anything,
Don't let my wife know that you don't have to have nice guitars to write great songs.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've earned the right to get a nice guitar at this point. So,
actually, my first publishing deal, I had no recording equipment and I had one guitar. It was a Jasmine, which is a low-end Takamine. And I was writing one day and the neck broke off of it. So I had to borrow a guitar from my publisher to be able to write.
Have you seen that meme? My biggest fear is I'm afraid that when I die, my wife's going to sell my guitar collection for what I told her I paid for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, next on our list is My Best Ideas Are Gone. One day I came into my publisher and I was really frustrated because my co-writers had taken my idea in a way I didn't like. And I was telling him, I'm so frustrated. This was a great idea. And they took it down this horrible direction. And he just said, is that the best idea you're ever going to have? And I said, I hope not. And he said, then move on, And his point was, you're always going to be able to find more ideas to write. And you and I have written thousands of songs, and I'm sure there's some days when you get up and you go, man, I don't know what there is new to say today, but we find it. We get in the room with other creative people and we find those things. So I think, to me, just keeping that mindset of like, I'm always going to find that song that's in the room that day. I'm going to find new ideas that are fresh that I want to write and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I can relate. I remember when I first started writing songs, I wrote a couple of good songs, and I happened to have a contact to go to Polygram Publishing and play songs for John Tita in New York City. And John was an amazing guy, long-time career, and he really liked what he heard. And he's like, bring me some more stuff, And I go home and I go, oh, crap, I don't know if I can write anything as good as those. Those were my best ideas, And I really remember thinking that. And you're right, that was probably like 5,000 songs ago. And I've far surpassed those songs,
What's next?
I hear this a lot. I'm too old or too young to make it in the music business. And you and I both know people that have become hit songwriters or hit artists late in life. I'm talking about 40s and 50s. A friend of mine didn't have his first, he was a bus driver. He didn't have his first hit until his mid-50s. SongTown member, Peter Daniel Newman. First big cut, he's in his 40s. I mean, we see it all the time, So I don't think that age plays a part in it, but if you give in to that myth that it's impossible, then you're going to miss out on what might have been, because we see example after example of people breaking that norm. You had a hit with a guy one time, Buddy Jewell, and Buddy was in his 40s and he became a hit artist. You know, I mean, there's really there's no rules when it comes to age. You know, there's averages, like, yeah, the average artist is a little younger, or the average songwriter might be a little younger. But even in pop, there are big writers today getting on tons of albums that are 40 or over, you know, and that's not stopping them. You would think in pop, oh, it's a young person's game. Not the case.
Well, I think, too, it's important to look at the advantages of whatever age you are. So if you're young, you've got the advantage of being cool and, you know, you've got fresh ideas. And if you're older, you've got maturity and you've got wisdom that you can bring to your writing or your artistry. And so that I try to look at the advantages of whatever age I am and not the disadvantages.
Yeah. And you can always work. If you're an older writer, you can work with a younger artist. And, you know, I mean, there's always a way to get around the system. Exactly. My grandma would say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I never thought to ask her, why would I want to skin a cat? Like,
in any way. Yeah, exactly. Good question. Next on our list is no one wants to hear what I have to say.
No, they don't.
I think a lot of people, thanks, Clay. I think a lot of people feel like they let those inner voices tell them, you know, no one cares about what you think. And that's not true. I mean, I think we all have things to say to the world, and we just have to have the confidence to get out there with our voice and to say the things that matter to us. And, you know, you and I did an event one time where we challenged people to come up with things that they really wanted to say to someone and write a song based on that. And those songs were full of heart and passion because it was something that those writers really cared about, you know? Yeah. And I think when we write things that we really care about, that matter, that are important in our life, other people are going to relate to those things too.
Yeah, I think it was Walt Whitman said that you reach a point where you realize that what's true in your own heart of hearts is true in the hearts of every man and woman. Yeah. So you have to, and I'm summarizing what he said, but you just have to realize that the truth is universal. Yeah. And so if you write your truth and stop worrying about, is this ever been said before? C.S. Lewis was talking about that, how you can't, if you want to be original, you can't worry about being original. He goes, what you worry about is speaking your truth, and then that ends up 9 times out of 10 becoming original.
Yeah, and authentic.
And authentic, right.
Yeah. So, Clay, what's next?
Songs have to be perfect.
They do, right?
No, if a song was perfect, a computer could write. Our job is not to be perfect. I often think of our job is to look for the magic that's beyond perfect, you know, and that's often not going to be perfect at all, but it's going to be heartfelt, it's going to be honest, and it's going to make people feel something. And I know a lot of people that don't want to show their work because they keep coming back and rewriting, thinking it's got to be better, and it's got to, and that drives good. You want to write your best, but I think at some point you can't get overindulgent with being afraid to show the world your songs, because I know for me, I can think something's great and I'll play it for someone else, and then immediately I go, oh, that second line and that's not good. I got to fix that. When you play something for the world, you see what works and what doesn't work in a way that you can't tell when you're just in a room by yourself.
Yeah. So this doesn't relate to songwriting, but my brother got engaged in New York City. He took his fiance up there. They went to the top of the Empire State Building. It was a beautiful night. They looked out over the city. He got down on one knee and proposed. He took her to this fabulous restaurant that also overlooked the city. They had dinner, and they got this flaming dessert. And when they brought it to the table, they spilled it on him and caught him on fire, caught his jacket on fire. And I asked him, I was like, well, did that ruin the night? And he was like, no, it was perfect. It was like everything was so beautiful about it. And then that thing happened and it was funny. And he said it was just a perfect night. And I think that's the way it is with our songs in a way. It's like if the heart is there, right, then little things can happen that are maybe not perfect technically or craft-wise, but it still works.
Yeah, and craft only needs to be perfect enough that you don't take away from your song. If you have no craft there, then all the heart in the world's not going to come across in your song. It's going to get buried in your lack of craft. But you have to have enough craft to get that emotion across. But it doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly. The next one is, if it doesn't come easy, it's no good.
Yeah.
I hear this a lot with people. They're like, well, this song just came to me, and so therefore they think that's great. And they were like, well, this one I had to really struggle, so it must not be as good. And in my experience, there's some of both. It can come easy and be great, or it can require a lot of work. I mean, there's songs that I've had that have been hits that I've had to work on several days.
Me too.
To get them right. So, I think looking at it as if this takes work, it's not right, can stop you from having some really great songs, because some of them just require more work than others.
Yeah, and a lot of times when somebody says, I wrote this song in 30 minutes, it sounds like they wrote it in 30 minutes.
Exactly, yeah.
So it reminds me of the story where Katy Perry was working on the song Roar, and they had it pretty much finished, but they couldn't figure out the chorus was not special yet. So they spent 5 days and finally figured out on the 5th day that if they sing the word roar with this slide up in the vocal, kind of like a lion's roar, then that's all it needed was that hook. But it took them 5 days after the song was finished just to come up with that part to make it hooky enough to be a hit. So if they had just put it out without doing that extra 5 days, so you can't tell them that, because it didn't come quickly, it was it was massive song.
Yeah, absolutely. Clay, what's next?
I hear this a lot, especially on social media, on little forum boards where people are talking about songwriting, like on Reddit, and it's like, I only write when I'm inspired. And to me, it's like, oh, wow. Like that is, I have no words. I'm speechless. I don't even know where to begin with that. Because the worst thing in the world, it's like going, I only go to the gym when I'm inspired, and I'm inspired about once every 6 months to go to the gym. Like, I'm not going to get in shape that way. Yeah. So I think the main thing is I have set my butt in the chair on days when I didn't feel like writing and come up with something amazing. That something in the room, I'm talking with a co-writer, we're talking about life, and all of a sudden, that would be a great song idea. Me writing with Darius Rucker, we're sitting there talking, first time I ever met him, and he's looking at me, he's like, well, what do you want to write today? And I was like, man, I don't want to write today. I don't feel like writing. This is not what you say to a superstar.
Bad idea, real bad idea.
The first time you meet a superstar and you're like, hey, I don't feel like writing today. But that's the way I felt. And he was like, really, what's going on? And I was like, okay, well, I was, broke up with my girlfriend last night and I'm second guessing myself. And he's like, man, we've all done that. And I was like, really, you have? And he's like, yeah, don't think I don't. I was like, whoa, that's a title. And so I grabbed my guitar and I instantly was like, don't think I don't think about it. Don't think I don't have regrets. Don't think it don't get to me. I think I probably had about that much. Mm-hmm. And we just looked at each other and we were like, wow, and we were off to the races. 90 minutes later, we had his first number one song as an artist completed. Like it was, but they don't always come that easy. But my point is, I had zero inspiration that day. Yeah. But the second he said, don't think I don't, my mind goes, don't think I don't think about it. And I could hear the melody and out it came. And thank God. Yeah.
Well, I think if you want to write songs consistently, you have to learn to make inspiration work for you, and you have to learn ways to inspire yourself.
Yeah.
So what does it take for you individually to get inspired? So for me, I like to spend 15 or 20 minutes before every write working on ideas, and I find a new idea and I'm excited about it and I get inspired. So I go into that co-write with something that I'm excited about, and that inspires the room, So that idea we have to wait on it is just not true. You can learn to get inspired.
Yeah. Sit down and invite the muse to join you. Don't wait for the muse to call your name.
Exactly. So number 9 on our list is you can't succeed without connections. One of the reasons we created SongTown was to give people opportunity to make connections who don't live in a music center. But the idea that you have to know everybody in town and you have to, get all the publishers on your side and, the phone numbers of the A&R people and all that kind of stuff is just not true. Because if you have one person in the business that is willing to listen to your song and they hear a great song, they're going to help you get it heard. You
don't have to know anyone in the business. I was writing for myself. I was in New York City writing songs with a guy that used to be on a soap opera, and a guy named Ken Meeker, great guy. And he had this dream of coming to Nashville and becoming an artist. And so I was writing songs with him. I think there were probably only 5 people in New York at that time writing country music. And I wrote with all 5 of them. But a friend of mine said, you should write with Ken Meeker. And I wrote with him. And he was going to Nashville. And he happened to know somebody who was in the business who would listen to his songs because he was on a soap. Maybe it could work. And so he plays our song for Mark Bright at EMI Publishing. And Mark was like, holy cow, this is a great song. He's like, who'd you write it with? Next thing I know, Mark's calling me on the phone. None of this had anything to do with anyone I knew. I knew my friend Bill, who introduced me to this other guy, Ken, who knew somebody in somebody in Nashville. And it wasn't because I knew the person in Nashville.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, 6 months later, I'm signing a publishing deal and moving to Nashville. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how all that came about, but I don't think you have to know anyone. You just have to write songs that are good enough that people go, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Steve Martin said you got to be so good they can't tell you no, right?
Yeah, so good they can't ignore you, I think.
Yeah.
Quote. Yeah, and I think we both know people that, they had success through 2 or 3 connections down the line, And the key to that, I think, is to just keep doing the work, to keep getting better. And, the every person you write with is a new piece of your network that could lead to something great. And so, the idea that you have to be well connected in town is just not true.
Yeah. I got one more thing.
What you got for us?
This idea that you have to match what a successful person is doing. And I'm going to take this in a direction you might not be thinking of, but I look at careers as having certain seasons. If you're just starting out, if you're a songwriter and you've written 20 songs and you're starting out, the actions you need to take are not going to be the same actions that Marty Dodson needs to take. You're at a different point in your career. So when you're seeing people that are successful and going, well, I need to do what they're doing. They're writing 300 songs a year, so I got to write 300 songs a year. Well, that may not be what you need right now for your career. Maybe right now you're better off learning your craft a little bit and looking for just truly great ideas to write. Because you could write 300 songs, and if none of them are great ideas, it's not going to matter.
Right.
So I think you have to kind of realize what season you're in, go back and find out how Marty Dodson started, not where Marty Dodson is today.
Right.
And I think that's one thing we try to do at SongTown is meet people at the level they're at and give them the tools to get better at that stage and grow, because it really depends on the season you're in your life and your journey.
Yeah. You know, we had a Wednesday morning meeting that we do with SongTown members, and somebody this week said, "Do you need a publisher to be successful?" And I said, "There's not one answer to that question.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on your situation and who you know, what you need right now." So yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, I mean, if you're writing with Bruno Mars before he ever has a hit, and you write his first album with him, and then he gets a record deal, you don't need a publisher, you know.
Yeah.
But it really depends.
You need an accountant.
Yeah, and you need a money counter, a bean counter.
Exactly.
But maybe we can do an episode on that sometime. Yeah. Do I really need a publisher?
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Okay, guys.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you appreciate the content, hit the subscribe button and help us grow. Shout out to Sweetwater Music. It's where Marty and I get all our musical gear. Great people. We'll see you guys around town. Right on.